Welcome to America's Heroes Group.
This is America's Heroes Group Roundtable. We are globally connected with Military Families Matters with partner, family caregiver Keisha L. Jackson. Today is Saturday, December 4th, 2021, and December is AIDS Awareness Month and National Human Rights Month. Our host is Cliff Kelly, I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honors Productions. And our partner on the line with us today is Keisha L. Jackson, U.S. Air Force veteran, family caregiver. But first, I wanted to tell you that to join us on America's Heroes Group now on our globally live streaming Facebook radio talk show. Like and share so others will become connected to information and resources. You can also listen to America's Heroes Group on the iHeartRadio app. Just search America's Heroes Group and watch us on digital TV streaming on Roku, Amazon Fire, digital TV, Apple TV, through our partner Zondra TV's network. Zondra TV's network with a Z-O-N-D-R-A. When you get to Zondra, search for America's Heroes Group. Just search for America's Heroes Group, and you will be able to find us on Zondra's TV's network or any of these streaming platforms. So, Keisha, how are you doing today?
I am doing well, Sean. How are you doing?
Doing very, very well. Glad to hear your voice.
Yeah, yours as well. As well.
It's great. So we also have a panelist, Nora Neal-Daggett. She is an author, a speaker, a writer of Grief Navigator, trained Stevens minister, and the CEO of Nora Speaks Life. How you doing, Nora?
I am excellent, Sean. Thank you so much. How are you?
So, Keisha, you want to give us an introduction for Miss Nora and give us kind of a background as to how you brought her to us today on America's Heroes Group?
Sure, definitely my pleasure. But before I talk a little bit about navigating through grief and Miss Nora, I wanted to just give a shout-out and say hi to a 9-year-old. I call her a self-caregiver, someone that's very special to me. It's my little cousin, Maddie. Her name is Madison, but we call her Maddie. She's 9 years old, and on October the 7th, Madison was admitted to CHOP Hospital. That's the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, for a bone marrow transplant. And although Maddie has had some challenges, each day she's getting better, she's getting stronger. And I just want to say to Maddie, I don't know if she's listening or if she'll hear it later. Maddie, I want you to know that your family is very proud of you, and we love you very much. And very soon we're going to be kissing you and hugging you. So I can't wait to just put my arms around you. So, yeah, really excited about that.
Wow, that's really heartwarming to really bring that up, and also to talk about something very human, so personal.
Yeah, it's been a journey, and maybe one time her mother and I, we were talking earlier about it today. It may be something that I'll just even see if we can bring to America's Heroes Group to talk even more about bone marrow transplants in our community and the importance of getting some information, some awareness, and different things like that.
So, Nora, now you wrote a book called When Tears Have Voice. The paperback came out in 2009. And you talk about navigating grief and things of that nature, and also sometimes even seeking a higher power to try to help you get through these things. So listen to what Keisha shared with us today. What are some things you can share with us to help us get through those tough times when we have grief in our hearts? What do we do, and how do we stay strong?
Sean, the very first step in successfully navigating grief is to acknowledge the pain and accept that you cannot do it alone. You spoke of a higher power. That is indeed an excellent ticket to have to walk through grief. And the second step is to stop feeling overwhelmed by the gloom and the despair, but look to that higher power. And for some people, that's Allah or a doorknob, but whatever you look to for your strength, for your health, for your well-being, then look to that to start to navigate through the loss. Loss is not a destination, Sean. It's one of those things that we endure as we live this life on this earth. But it is a trial. You walk through it with the hope and the expectation of getting to the other side and eventually to joy again.
So tell us a little bit about, too, you're a Stevens ministry. Tell us what Stevens ministry is and then how that connects to the process of caregiving.
Okay. You know, it's interesting. Stevens Ministry is a worldwide organization, and they put together a plan to help individuals help other individuals. So the thought and the process is, and you all use this as soldiers, how do you get through a minefield behind the steps of someone else who's walked through that minefield? And that's the mindset about Stephen's ministry. You've been through a divorce, or you've been through a death. You can reach back and help someone else walk through that. So it's a 9 to 12 week training program, depending on where you take it. And you just walk through the steps of the difference between empathy and sympathy, of learning how to help people realize where they are and what they need to do. And my favorite expression is to realize who they are and whose they are. Again, reaching back to that higher power and what he has given each of us to navigate difficulties in our lives.
I think that's so profound when you talked about, because oftentimes it takes a really strong person and a leader and actually a person of grace, really truly, to actually look back and help someone get through something that's traumatic. Someone who's been through something traumatic, and having the time and patience and the care and wherewithal to actually look back and help somebody get through that landmine. I think that's really, I'm thinking, like, so my hats off to you, Keisha, for what you do every day. I mean, I've tasted some of that being a caregiver as well myself. And that's one of the things that many Americans will find themselves in that particular role. Some people, it's overwhelming, and some people run from it. Some people, they just dig in and they just do it. How do you get that courage and that strength to look for a higher power, whatever it is, to get yourself to that position where you're even want to be helping someone else get through what you just went through?
Sean, the thing that I want to say at this point is that we were each created, every single one of us, with a void, and I call it a God-sized void, right in the center of our hearts. So we are always looking for that way to get through. Sometimes we reach for people. Sometimes we reach for alcohol. Sometimes we reach for any type of substance to get us through, when actually just simply saying, God, I need you, or Holy Spirit, I need you. Just reaching out, realizing that in and of yourself, you cannot do it. You cannot navigate loss. You can't navigate pain. You can't get better a lot of times until you acknowledge that you are not everything that you need. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. One thing, though, not to say that word, play devil's advocate, but in that same vein, some people say, well, how do I believe in something that I can't see? How do I have faith in something that is not real? Or they've never really been in a situation where they've had that maybe connection or family type environment where they are willing to let down their guard and say, hey,
right,
I'm missing something. So so that person who's never seen that, never had that experience, never been in that type of culture, where do they go, and how do they reach out for help?
There are many churches and organizations, but generally, Sean, I have just led people just by the example of loving people, just being kind, just being willing to help them. And when you can allow people to see the milk of human kindness, and then you can begin to talk to them about that higher power and find out where they are and what their experience was as a child or as an adult with any type of relationship with the higher power. So just talking with someone is one way. Of course, people can there's so many online churches now, so many online churches on Sunday morning. You don't even have to get up out of your bed and get your clothes on. You can just pull up your computer. There are many sources online as well. The Bible app is one fantastic tool that people can use. It's called the U version, and it is a very basic introduction into the higher power.
Now, tell us a little bit about your book, When Tears Have Voice. So when
Sure.
you wrote that book, what motivated you to write that book? And then what are some of the things that really that a person, when they read that, what do you hope that that brings to their heart or brings to their mindset?
When Tears Have Voice came out of the death of my second husband, I was married to the father of my three children for 21 years, and then we were divorced. And then I remarried about 12 years later, and we were married for 5.5 years. He was 52 years old when he contracted pneumonia, and it was a very ravishing pneumonia called Legionella pneumonia, and he lived about a month, and then he died. Out of my pain, I wrote. I have always written for comfort, and I wrote every day, just navigating that loss because it was overwhelming. The waves came at me big and hard and knocked me down. But I knew that there was more beyond this, and I can remember saying just a few moments after he died, God, I don't know how to do this. And I heard one step at a time, one moment at a time. So let's fast forward about 6 months after he died. I was inscribing another book that someone had given me, and I had bought many of them for other people. And I got a very strong inclination that I should write my own devotional. I went back to those things that I had written, added a scripture and a prayer to each one of the little stories, and When Tears Have Voice then became a book. My entire hope within that book is for people to realize that you can walk through the pain one day at a time, one moment at a time, because your focus only has to be the next thing, not anything further than that, but the next thing that you have to do. And I want people to come away having the vision that, yes, there can be joy in my life again. Yes, loss is not a destination for me. There is a plan and a purpose for me beyond this loss. That's it in a nutshell.
Wow. And then what are some of the things, would you say, personally going through your struggles, like what were the biggest challenges? So what were some of the things that maybe sometimes knocked you out of that walk? Because every time you go through the process of healing or going through the process of trying to recover or get to the next level or get to the next point, the end result, there's always going to be some kind of a moment where you fall down or where you doubt yourself or you fall out of that walk. So what are some of those challenges, those stumbling blocks that you've seen in your own personal life?
I would have to say, Sean, that the thing that was the biggest for me was the loneliness. Coming home, he wasn't there, and we commuted together every day. So we had our processing time and talking about management and that type thing. But the hardest thing for me was the loneliness and his just not being there. But I did a couple of little things that, how ideas will just flow into your head. I started, this was back in 2004 when there were still message machines on your phone. So I would call myself in the mid part of the day, and the message would say, "Welcome home, Nora. I hope you had a good day. Just know that Ruben's presence is still here and that he will always love you." And that gave me a sense of peace. I could come in and push that message machine, and that was my welcome home. You find little things along the way to comfort yourself. When my second husband died, I knew, because I got married again 12, 13 years later, and when he died, this was the primary thing I knew. I know I will get through this because I got through it before.
That seems almost cruel. They have to get married again, and then all of a sudden, they go through the same experience.
Yeah, well, I did have moments of time that I would say to the Lord, I know that I truly do not understand this, but I do know that you are sovereign and that you don't make mistakes. And that is whenever I would have that overwhelming feeling of, I don't understand it, I'm mad at, I'm angry, and you've taken another husband from me, I know that God doesn't make mistakes. And that is how I walked through that.
And I can relate to a lot of veterans, a lot of people that were in really tough times, especially combat veterans, that have told me stories where they said a lot of the same things, that something higher than them, something that got them through, was having that faith and having that tunnel vision almost. Sometimes when you're in the darkest point, being able to look and focus on something that you love, something that actually that you want, that you have to live for, to get through some of the toughest times that you will ever experience in your life.
That's right. That's right.
You know.
But Sean, we've talked a little bit about the higher power and whatnot. But the thing that is that I want to bring to light is that Jesus does have healing for our wounded hearts, and he has a message in Isaiah that says he was pierced and crushed for our transgressions and iniquities, and by his wounds we are healed. In a word, he loves us, and he will heal us from anything that pushes us down and prevents us. And I'm very sure, based on what you just said, that many a soldier has had to reach deep down inside of himself to find that peace and associate that peace with the higher power.
Now, you have 43 years in nursing management experience. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Okay.
I'm old.
Well, you're still young to me. So you were a senior nurse liaison at MedStar Nashville, a little bit at Haitian Center. That's in Washington, D.C. Is that right across the street from the VA over in D.C.?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay,
right there on that same campus.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tell me some of the experiences you've seen or learned working there with your years of experience in a hospital where you see grief all the time. You see things all the time where people are saying goodbye to loved ones, or a person walks in not even expecting to have anything bad happen to them, and they're getting bad news. You have cancer, or they're not coming out of that hospital.
Right.
How does that shape your mindset, and also how do you hold on to your light to really be able to help someone else get through a bad time?
I have a process, Sean, every morning, and I've done this since a very young nurse, because you are always faced with life and death situations, or situations that no one was prepared for, nevertheless the family. So now you are standing there as an individual to reach. You've got to step out of yourself, because your emotions can take over. So if you can step out of yourself in the mornings, I always ask the Lord for guidance and for the ability for people to see him and not see me, so that when those situations come up, I can be a comfort. I can be a post to lean on. I can be the person that can hold you while you cry. And through that, those periods of time when I have stood with a doctor and told a family, this is a very bad cancer and we don't anticipate that he's going to live longer than 6 months, and then go back into that room to just talk to that family, to give them the opportunity to be angry if they want to be angry, or cry if they want to cry. But the thing that is important is just being there for that family or that individual at that time. Just your mere presence and your caring really means the world to people, very, very, and that's what I've learned over the years. Just being there. Sometimes you don't even have to say anything. Just your presence is phenomenal to many people going through loss or going through some disappointing news.
And that seems like there's something missing, in my opinion. It seems like that's something that's missing a lot in healthcare today, particularly when we're dealing with veterans and what veterans have gone through, because there's a disconnect. A lot when a healthcare professional, especially if they're civilian, they don't understand some of the things that veteran might have experienced, particularly if they're combat veterans. Now, I'm not a combat veteran, you know what I'm saying? So I can imagine, but I know that's a whole nother level once people have been shooting at you, or you've been hit with an IED, or you've been driving down the road and all of a sudden, an RPG, a rocket-propelled grenade comes through, flying through your truck, whatever. So so having those traumatic experiences and trying to connect with someone who has not had those types of experiences, who's looking at you from the guise of things that they think they've seen every single day. We talked earlier about how important culture is to your identity oftentimes.
Mm-hmm,
And the same thing
mm-hmm,
in the
mm-hmm.
veteran community. When you become part of the military, that becomes part of your culture now. That's a culture that you learn and that you adopt, that you kind of become part of. And then now, when you are in the civilian world, you still have that culture that you bring with you. So you can't just leave that behind you. You can't just cut it off. It's still in your
Right.
mind. It's still in your soul. So one of the things that I wonder, and a person like you will be the best person to ask, is: do you see the world being more compassionate to do the types of work that you do, as far as helping other people, or do you see us? Where do you see us in that regard? Are we moving forward or backwards as far as being a more compassionate community, not just within the veteran community, but I'm talking about within this country?
I believe, Sean, that we have to look for those individuals, to look for those people, because the world is in such a turmoil and such a traumatic place right now that looking for kindness sometimes that isn't there is very devastating. So as a world, as a whole, I think we're moving very fast. I think that we sometimes don't stop and think, but I do know that when there is one person within a group of 10 that displays compassion, that displays love for other people, that they can change that group. So in my prayer time every morning, I am praying for more individuals to shine a light into the darkness, because we live in a very dark world now. And I believe people are so caught up in their own stuff and what they want and how to do it. COVID changed some things, that's for sure. It made people be more introspective, and it made people realize that I have to look beyond myself to help the people down the street that didn't have any food, to help other people have food on their tables. Organizations have really band together in a caring method to bring food and to help people with their rent and so forth and so on. So, I don't think the world is less compassionate. I think the world is coming to a point. I realize that the world is coming to a point where we have to be compassionate for one another and care for one another, because that's what we are to do as human beings.
I appreciate your time, Nora. That was I think you give me a lot of hope and a lot of faith of what we can do as people and as veterans to make this world a better place. And I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the work that you do. And Keisha,
thank you so much.
Again. Thank you. And Keisha, thanks once again for bringing us a bright light in this dark world sometimes. And this is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.